Well, ever since his shocking return at the WWE Survivor Series, CM Punk has been the talk of the town in the wrestling business. Every single podcast, every single YouTube channel, everybody in their mom that is in the pro wrestling media world has been talking about CM Punk, and rightfully so. The guy is a lightning rod for attention, for controversy. The man is on the tip of everybody's tongue. And we all know what I like to do here on this show is I like to do reviews and reactions and just kind of talk about the different stories that are talked about in these podcasts. Problem is, everybody's talking about CM Punk. Where do you even start? So what I decided to do is kind of curate a collection for you guys here and kind of cherry pick different topics that kind of take different directions with the return of CM Punk, to kind of get a more well-rounded analysis of the overall return of Punk, what it means in the greater context of everything in the wrestling world. And to help me do that, we are going to play through a series of clips here. Now, for the short attention span people, I will probably at some point soon make it a point to break these clips up and try to, in smaller portions, each individual clip. But I did want to have this curated collection of everybody talking about the big return of CM Punk, because we have not seen news this topical, everybody talking about a subject like this since Vince McMahon getting fired, since TKO buying WWE, since Jay Briscoe passing. These are the biggest stories that I've had to cover, and this one is right up there with it. So to kind of first break the, just kind of wet the whistle here a little bit, I want to play this clip from Sean Ross Sapp as he kind of goes into detail, more just about exactly what was going on and what he is being told, what he was in the know of going into this, and now what he's being told coming out of this as far as the meat and potatoes, nuts and bolts of CM Punk's actual return to the WWE. Check out this clip from Fightful, The Hump.
Again, you never said he was or wasn't going to be there. You only said what you were told by WWE personnel.
Until he was backstage, then I did say he was going to be there.
He was backstage. Triple H in the scrum kind of, verified what you had said, because he said speculation was just speculation, and this came together quick. Do you have anything to add as far as this deal coming together?
Yeah, I found out on November 19th that CM Punk and Triple H had an hour-long phone call. But even as of that point, his own friends were being told, don't know if Survivor Series is going to be a thing. But I mean, Denise even said it on our Raw post show, because after that show, I said to her, remember me telling you this? CM Punk and Triple H had an hour-long conversation. I actually communicated that with the higher up that also did not know until I think the hours before Punk showed up, because I was asking WWE reps as of the day of, and as of that afternoon, it still wasn't confirmed to them and the PR team and all that. The creative team was never clued in at any point, So that's something that they've sort of had to adjust. They didn't have to change much of Raw as a result, because there wasn't a lot of it to really go through there. We had just broken on Fightful Select that there are several in WWE who have been told that he's got a behavioral clause, which there's an awful lot to it. I haven't spoken to Punk personally. Again, it's always tough to gauge like who the hell he wants to talk to, who he doesn't. Understandable. But there were a lot of people that were immediately trying to say, oh, well, he was taking shots at the Bucks, etc. People close to him tell me that he wants to kind of put that past him. And that's what a lot of the I've changed is about. I think that even at this point, he's got to kind of realize like this doesn't squarely fall on everybody else. It can't be everybody else at some point.
And that's something Triple H said, too, in the media scrum after Survivor Series, was that it was something that came together very quickly. It was something that was pretty much last minute. They had their talks. As Sean Ross Sapp said, maybe a week before, they had an hour-long talk, but nothing was official until it was official. Punk, living right there in Chicago, could just fucking scooch right over and just be there on the spot, before the end of the show. So last minute situation there. And then the situation with the clause in the contract, the behavioral clause, that's interesting too. I definitely see why they would do it. WWE has no actual need for CM Punk for business. Maybe they do. We'll get to that here in a minute. But really, Punk is lucky to be there. So this behavioral clause kind of protects WWE, gives them an easy out if Punk does decide to be a Punk. Because, look, man, everybody's like, oh, yeah, he was super friendly backstage and all of that. But everybody kind of forgets how soon we forget when CM Punk made his debut to AEW. What was the criticism of Punk for several weeks after he debuted? Right? Nice guy Phil, PG Punk. And that's what everybody's saying about him again with his promo that he did on Raw. Very nice guy Phil. Oh, I'm home now. The guy that hated WWE for years and years now hypocritically is, oh, I love WWE now. This is my home. This is where I was wanting to be, bro. So everybody's kind of criticizing nice guy Phil, PG Punk. Has he been tamed? Has he been pussified? Did he lose his edge? Well, as Punk put when he returned to AEW, when he was asked about that, be careful what you ask for and careful what you wish for, man. AEW certainly got the edgier version of Phil at some point, did they not? Which leads me to my next clip here, as what led to CM Punk get freed up to be available for WWE. Now, of course, we all know what happened, but was it on purpose? Did Punk quit? Or did he purposely get himself fired so that he could go to WWE? Dutch Mantell thinks he might. Check out this clip.
You can say what you want to about CM Punk, but the one thing you have to say is he knows how to get people to talk about him.
I'm going to put you on a spot here. Do you think that CM Punk got himself fired from AEW on purpose?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I didn't originally think that, but I think that he wanted them to fire him because that goes right along with he's a maverick. Nobody tells him what to do. If you fire me, good, fire me. He didn't care. And originally I didn't think that, but now as time went on, I think that he got himself fired on purpose.
Now that may or may not be, certainly that was the speculation at the time, because Punk had just come back from Brawl Out, from the big, everybody thought he was going to get fired for the shit that happened with the Young Bucks and the fight and the drama and the press conference and all of that. Punk comes back and he immediately just starts like trying to choke people and choke Tony and fucking sucker punching people or whatever he's doing backstage. He's trying to get fired, is he not? Is he really just that short-tempered that these idiots and morons and douchebags that he's working with backstage, allegedly, in his opinion, are children, are just pissing him off so bad that he just can't help himself? Or was he more devious about it? Was he like, fuck, I got to get out of here, but I got this contract. I'm going to try to choke Tony Khan. That'll get me fired. We'll see if we can do that. What was it really like? What was going on there? Well, Bully Ray asked Mark Henry on the Busted Open radio show. Mark Henry worked with CM Punk backstage in AEW. Mark was there. He was physically there. And Bully Ray put Mark Henry on the spot. What was it like? What was it really like? What really happened? Check out this clip.
Mark, listen, I never like to put, fuck it. You were there with him. You were there with him. You are the best first-hand account of how he was in AEW. So you're telling us he wanted to put people over. He wanted to do business the right way. He wanted to do all of these positive things, but somehow, some way, we got a bunch of negativity with him. Why?
I wish I knew. I think that old regimes and new regimes, you have to put that in the front right away. And I don't think that, and this is my opinion, like, you know, it's not etched in stone or anything, but everybody was not on the same page, I don't think. I think that, you know, like there was a aura of the old guard and the new guard, and we're more important one way or the other. Like, you should listen to me. I've been there, done that before. You should listen to us. We know the pulse of the future. So it was just, I feel like that you got to put all of your cards on the table and everybody talk and communicate. Like, if you don't talk and communicate, then you're going to have issues.
So he's kind of trying to give a little bit of a political answer there, but reading between the lines, it was a difference of opinion between him and the Elite, him and the Young Bucks, him and the EVPs, most likely. Probably even him and Tony, or maybe Tony was caught in the middle and just didn't know what the fuck to think. But Punk, old school, Bucks, new school, clashing heads. It was probably a good idea to have Punk on Collision. Give him, if he was a secret EVP, which I've speculated that he was, that because he was, remember, he also had 2 contracts. That's quickly forgotten about too, that he is fired from both of his contracts from AEW. What was that other contract besides the wrestler contract? Was it a secret EVP contract? Because he was, we're trying to run a business here, said Angry Phil eating his muffins. And why he was butting heads with the Elite, the EVPs, the other EVPs. That's why. That's what was going on. So maybe it did make sense to give them each their own show, and let's try to do it that way. That made sense, theoretically. But if you buy into what Dutch was kind of speculating there, maybe Punk just wanted his way out. Maybe for Punk, he realized that, you know what? The grass is not always greener on the other side of that WWE fence. And that is what Booker T had speculated, as he was the topic of discussion on Booker T's podcast, The Hall of Fame, with Brad Gilmore. Brad Gilmore kind of playing more of the hypocritical role. Punk a little bit more of a hypocrite to him. Booker T just kind of sees it as, LOL, AEW probably sucks, and Punk realized it. Check out this clip.
The return of one Phil Brooks, one CM Punk made his return to the WWE. According to CM Punk, after Monday Night Raw's promo, he's back home. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I was surprised to hear that.
I was surprised to hear that also.
Yeah. I didn't know that he ever had considered it, his home before. And I know people have been waiting to hear, you and I's thoughts, because we've been critical, or at least I have for sure been critical of CM Punk and the way he's conducted himself and the way he's acted since he made his wrestling return. And I remember he when he came back to AEW, he said that some amount of years ago he left pro wrestling. When he left Ring of Honor, he left pro wrestling, and then now he's made his return back to pro wrestling as being in AEW. But now I guess he's returned back to sports entertainment. I was surprised to hear him say that, because look, obviously he said a lot of things about the company over the years, has had a lot of bad blood for the company. Some of it understandable, some of it not. So I was surprised not only to see him, but to see him call it home.
Yeah. You remember CM Punk made a quote when he was in AEW. He was talking about younger guys may be thinking about going to the other side. And he said the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. But in certain places, like in Arizona, you can water that damn grass all day long and it ain't gonna turn green. You understand what I'm saying? You feel me? You know where I'm coming from? And maybe CM Punk, figured that out after a minute being in AEW, working with, certain guys. Say, for instance, when I went to TNA, I wouldn't necessarily say I thought the grass was greener on the other side, but I thought we could get some synthetic and then we could make the
It's some AstroTurf.
exactly and make this thing work. But it did, for me, it did, it never worked out. It never panned out. And in a couple of years, boom, I was out of there. And, maybe CM Punk, like I say, felt that, man, maybe this ship can't be righted. And let me get the hell out of here and try to get back into WWE. So, I get it. I get it 100%.
I do find it kind of funny, these guys that were super critical and kind of haters of Punk. Booker T was certainly not a fan of Punk. He's very he likes to throw his low blow jabs at AEW too all the time, and he was very critical of Punk during Punk's entire run. From his very first debut return promo, Booker T made news as being the one guy that thought it was a bad promo, and has kind of been a hater ever since. But now all of a sudden he's like, I get it. He wants to go back. And yes, he is kind of having a laugh about it. But him and Eric Bischoff, which we'll play a clip from later, was also kind of, I think it'll be a great success. And we'll get to that clip and everything. But it's weird how people kind of change their tune a little bit now that Punk's back over on the WWE side of things with these people that are clearly anti-AEW. But I digress. Punk now back in the WWE where he got his start, where he got his big break after coming out of Ring of Honor. And speaking of Punk's big break in WWE, one guy chiming in on all the CM Punk talk and trying to capitalize on that, just like me, by the way, thank you for your view, if you're still here, was Maven. Maven's YouTube channel. And he took a little bit of a different approach, and he kind of talked about his unique perspective as being the guy who had CM Punk's first match ever in the WWE, back when nobody knew who the fuck he was, unless they were watching Ring of Honor. Check out this clip.
Each other. Why? Because they're both clowns?
And there we get our first sighting of Punk. When I first met Punk, it was actually through Stevie Richards. Stevie came up to me earlier in that day, and Punk and Stevie were friends at the time. And Stevie asked me, he was like, Maven, I want to make sure Punk has a good showing. Can you guys do everything in your power to put forth a good match? I was like, absolutely.
Been bitten off more than they can chew, but against these two guys are taking on right here. Somebody cover these guys. Hook in the leg. Forget about it.
Okay, right there is exactly where we went against management. The one thing management wanted, they wanted us to get the pinfall victory, the 1, 2, 3 on CM Punk. And for whatever reason, I have no clue. I mean, he wasn't even assigned talent at the time, but he already had heat in the company. There were already feathers he had ruffled. I don't know how, and I don't know whose. Nova saw it different. Nova wanted to give the guy a chance. And Nova made the decision that earlier on when we were going over the match backstage, he said, once we come in, I'm going to knock you out, Punk. You roll to the floor. Go to the floor. That way we can get the slam 1, 2, 3 on Simpson. I don't know why Simon wanted to protect Punk. It could have been a favor to Stevie, like Stevie asked us earlier in the day, or he might have seen in Punk what the entire world would come to see years later. Simon was always a good gauge of talent. He might have known that Punk, for whatever reason, had heat backstage, and he was just doing everything in his power to protect him, knowing that if there was any trouble to be had, it was going to fall on us. And by us, I mean Simon. So the question remains, how do we then not get in trouble for disobeying direct orders? Therein lies the genius with Simon Dean. Simon, knowing they wanted the pinfall to be on Punk, also knew that during this time we were going to have time cues to hit. So by telling Punk, when I hit you, roll to the floor rather than standing up on the apron so you can be tagged back in, if you're on the floor, we're going to have to go with the flow. We're going to have to finish the match, thus being able to get the slam and finish on Russell Simpson. So to management, it looks like a miscommunication and an improvisation by us, when in reality, it was all thought about ahead of time by the creator of the Simon system. And this is actually probably even news to Punk.
I just wanted to slip that one into the mix because it was a different perspective on the whole CM Punk thing, and you only have one first match in WWE, even if it was a tryout, wasn't under his contract or anything, but it was the first time Punk wrestled in a WWE ring, and it was against Maven, so that's pretty fun. But Punk now back in the house that is WWE. Of course, this was something that people said would never, ever, ever happen. And one person that said, of course it would fucking happen, are you stupid, was Jim Cornette. And Jim Cornette was on his podcast, The Jim Cornette Experience, with Brian Last, talking about just that. About him being the one guy or one of the few guys out there saying that, of course, it makes all the business sense in the world for Punk to go back to the WWE. Everybody would be insane to not do that. And then even he was about to give up hope until Punk did finally show up. Check out this clip.
But all these people on the internet, the naysayers, no, Uncle Dave said it. I've talked to my source, it's not going to happen. They say it's not going to take blah, 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 blah. And I said at the time, well, if it was going to happen, that's the first thing I'd fucking say anyway. Right? How can this not happen? It makes too much sense, and they'll make too much money. And it will work on so many levels to send a message to the other company at the top and to the locker room at the bottom to, again, hotshot ratings in time of rights renegotiations. But this is what we're talking about, and that's why I said they got to do this. And everybody else was shooting it down on the internet to the point where finally I said on the drive-through, I said, well, I guess if everybody else is saying that this ain't happening, fuck, I guess they don't need to make $50 million anymore. Go look the clip up, people. I said, how can this not happen? Guess what? It fucking happened. And I was saying it all along, because how can it not fucking happen? It's tens of millions of dollars that this company can fucking make. And at the same time, literally backhand bitch slap the only competition they have in this country that they can see with binoculars behind them. And they did both at the same time.
Right, it makes all the business sense and the money sense in the world. It is hypocritical, absolutely. And all of those people saying, oh, Punk would never be hypocritical. He'll never go back to WWE, which, I probably would have been one of those people that might have said, you know what, I just don't see it because, and I'm sure I have said that because I've speculated on this to death before it actually happened. But it was a tough sell to see Punk back in the WWE ring, and especially playing ball, calling it home. One person glad to have CM Punk back on board, back in the family, and one person with a unique perspective on CM Punk as well as the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Micheals, the head of NXT, who recently just said he would be happy to have Punk in NXT before Punk showed up to Survivor Series, because Shawn Micheals has the unique perspective of being that guy in the locker room that everybody fucking hates. That outspoken, cocky, brash, arrogant, but can back it up by being the best for business, and that's why you can't get rid of him. That was Shawn Micheals in the 90s. to an extent, there's a lot of parallels there. So Michaels has a unique perspective on Punk. And he talked about that here with Peter Rosenberg on Rosenberg Wrestling. I guess he's got another separate YouTube. It looks to be brand new. But he's got an interview with the Heartbreak Kid. And they talked about CM Punk.
What's it like, though, Shawn? You've had those days where you had your people, quite literally the clique, who have your back, and then you have some more people who aren't happy to see you, and then others who are indifferent. What is that feeling like? You know, you're walking in with your suitcase, heading in down the ramp into the building, when you know kind of every corner you turn might be a mixed reaction in the eyes.
Yeah, well, early on, it's uncomfortable. But again, I think after a while you get used to it. Look, everybody would prefer to be liked, but if you're somebody, second guessing is always going to go on this line of work. It is impossible to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And look, you know as well as I do, in any line of work and in any walk of life, everybody can say, I really like this guy and I get along with him. And they're talking about him 2 minutes later anyway. And that goes for everybody, even the most liked individuals. And so I don't know. I think he's been doing this for a long time. Again, I guess I always say, like, I don't know. I always liked Phil and I don't know. And I always understood heaven forbid you have a different opinion. I don't know. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me.
I love that take from Shawn Michaels because, like he said, heaven forbid you have an opinion. Now, I think it was a little bit more than that. Punk had opinions with his fists and with his hands strangling and choking out people. But regardless, yes, he's one of those people, Shawn Michaels, who knows what it's like to be hated by everybody in the locker room, but to be so goddamn good that you just can't get rid of him. So you have to put up with his little punk ass, but you would love to just strangle him and punch him out, and the things he says and does are controversial on the mic and all of that. So that's CM Punk in today's era. But, with all of that, we're happy to have him here, and this is his home and all of that, blah, 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 blah. Is there more of an ulterior motive? Obviously, WWE is living their best life right now, are they not? That was one of the many criticisms of, for everybody that was saying that Punk will never be back in WWE, or why would they want to take on CM Punk? He's drama. He's a cancer. Why would they want to do that and stir up their locker room when they have everything's going perfect? Everything's golden. WWE's doing their best business ever. Well, Eric Bischoff had a little bit of speculation on the Strictly Business podcast that he actually got from Conrad Thompson. So I guess the credit goes to Conrad. But Bischoff was the one speaking it here, that maybe WWE's reason for signing CM Punk has to do, and placing him on the Raw brand, might have to do with the fact that WWE's trying to sell that Raw show, and that might just be what puts him over the top. Remember, CM Punk was basically given his own show by Turner, Collision. So certainly he could be quite the draw to some of these networks. Check out this clip.
Conrad said, I believe we're going to see CM Punk back in WWE before the end of the year. And I said, I don't think so. It doesn't make sense to me. They don't need him right now. Survivor Series is sold out. It's already getting a ton of buzz. Where is the added value? Now, this is not my opinion of CM Punk, the performer, or Phil Brooks, the individual. But just because WWE is so freaking hot right now that there is no hole in their roster, there's not a need. So it was like, if you're going to pull that trigger and bring in a guy who is as controversial as Punk is, and who has done a great job of keeping himself front and center in terms of controversy, why would you use it on a night when you don't need it? Now, Conrad, on the other hand, his position was they're negotiating for TV rights for Raw, and perhaps that added level of chatter or internet wrestling buzz and reaction to Punk coming in, maybe that would be enough to push a deal over the top.
The Turner Network, was really high on CM Punk when he was in AEW. They were really pushing, as part owners, they were really pushing to keep CM Punk and to give him a whole show. Make it the CM Punk show. They have their little marketing, they do their little market research gimmicks and that sort of thing. Eric Bischoff talks about it a lot on his show, the market research that they would do. And one of the big things that these networks were coming up with wrestling is that fans love CM Punk, that there's something about Punk, as the meme says over there. How about that meme, by the way? Look at that meme over there. That's some dope shit, right? That might be my personal best. I've had some good ones. I think the last time I said that was the one of Tony Khan snorting coke and drinking coffee and just being, that was a fun one. But this might be a fun one. It might be my best work yet. But I digress. CM Punk could be that last crown jewel that WWE could use to put them over the top in their bargaining for a potential TV deal for Monday Night Raw with whatever networks are left in the hunt. That won't be Warner Brothers Discovery. We'll talk about that later on in a future clip or in a separate clip if you are watching just the clips. But finally here, our last clip, speaking of clips, comes from our good old friend Mick Foley, jolly old Saint Mick. Always the purest of hearts, had also an interesting take on this. Now that Punk is back in the WWE, we've covered everything that brought us to this point and all the takes on him signing. But now we have Mick Foley's take on the Busted Open radio show on, I hope Punk enjoys this, because Punk's kind of proven that he's making more headlines with all of his drama and all of his negativity than just being part of the product and being a successful part of the product and enjoying the product. This was Mick Foley's take from his personal experience with Punk. Check out this clip.
And he's laying the groundwork for what should be an incredible run. If he can remember, this is like one thing I used to tell him is Phil and I were pretty close at one time, and he couldn't get motivated for The Undertaker. And he felt like they'd taken that main event spot away from him. And I'd say, Phil, the main event is what the fans decide the main event is.
Amen.
Right? You go out there and you decide what your own WrestleMania moments are. So, like, I don't brag about much, but I felt like Edge and I had the match of the night in 2006, and no one will be able to tell me differently. So that was my WrestleMania moment. I didn't need somebody stamping the words main event on it to tell me how I felt when that match was done. And so I was like, man, I just feel like if you can't appreciate working with Undertaker at WrestleMania, and if you win the AEW title and the focus becomes not on the joy of that title, but on airing your grievances, then you've done a disservice to the title. This is all that I'm going to say also when he had the interaction with Jungle Boy. If the feeling after drawing the largest non-WWE crowd in the history of the United Kingdom is not on that crowd, but on a backstage fight, again, you've done a disservice to the company. So I hope this is going to be Punk's last run. I hope he finds a way to enjoy it. I believe he'll do whatever he needs to do to be as good as he can possibly be. I disagreed with a couple of those guys. The great worker thing was something else, because I've seen Punk, granted, 10 years ago, up close enough times. And I was one of the guys pushing for him to come into WWE after watching him in Ring of Honor. So I know this guy has torn down the house over the course of a few decades now, and I know he has the pride to tear it down again. I just hope as a human being that Phil will, I mean, I'm not trying to be cave, but that Punk will enjoy it and rise to the occasion of the big moments so that we as fans are talking about what we should be talking about when those matches are over and not some, extracurricular activity.
Can I just pause and give myself a little bit of credit for making it through 9 separate clips, 9 separate segues, transitions, weaving that story in together. I actually plotted that one out a little bit, kind of picking which pieces tell the full story of this Punk puzzle. And can we just acknowledge how fucking impressed with myself I am for being able to pull that off. If you're looking for a host, anybody out there in TV land, you're looking to pay people the monies for hosting gigs, I got you covered. I can do it. I got those transitions down pat. That was some fine work, son. But Mick Foley's not wrong. Back to Mick Foley. Hopefully Punk can enjoy it. Hopefully Punk realizes that this is his last chance in professional wrestling. CM Punk has 2 roads in front of him right now. He has, and these are the roads to his legacy. He has one road that leads down the same path that the Ultimate Warrior took. And even Warrior was able to come back, thankfully, before he died, make peace, make amends, give that one last final eerie promo. But Punk can take the path of the self-destruction of Phil Brooks, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, the self-destruction of CM Punk, the most hated, the most controversial, the guy that ruined himself because of his attitude, because he just couldn't get along with anybody backstage. He completely ruined and tarnished his legacy of what would have been a great legacy. One of the all-time greats, ruined, forgotten to history because of his shitty attitude and personality. That's path 1. That was almost how he had left it when he left WWE to begin with. But he kind of became a cult hero because he was standing up to the machine, right? Standing up to Vince's corporate tyranny, to the bullshit booking, to all of that. Apologize, he said.
And you will apologize, and you will like it. I apologize, you son of a bitch.
And then he went to AEW and tried to help them because they were the counter to Vince McMahon's product. They were the underdogs, the alternative brand. But Punk couldn't make it work there either, which started to make people like me kind of go, okay, man, I loved Punk, and he was my anti-hero because of I believed everything he said about WWE. But now he's got all these problems with AEW. Maybe it's just Punk. Maybe at some point, maybe the problem's just Punk if problems happen everywhere you go. But Punk's got a clean slate now, back in WWE. Everything's clean. Everything's clear. Hopefully, Punk has the opportunity to take that other path towards the Hall of Fame, towards ending his career on a good note. One last great run, some big headline. I mean, he could have that second half of his career like Shawn Micheals had. Where Shawn Micheals, remember when he came back, he was, even though he had a world title win, he was never the top guy. He was a top guy, not the top guy. That's the run you do with Shawn Micheals or with CM Punk. You bring him back to be involved in big feuds, big storyline angles, and just be that co-headliner, that co-main event, that extra cherry on top to entice people into buying the pay-per-view or just watching the show or going to tickets or whatever the fuck, right? People, he's going to sell tickets, I'll tell you that. Next time Raw comes around the horn, I'm going to go there because Punk will be there. It's a good deal. And hopefully he can, he can ride that wave. He can have some of the best matches of his career, cut some of the best promos of his career, and leave that legacy behind where he leaves with honor instead of in disgrace. And he can go on to have that Hall of Fame run. Hell, even maybe make peace with AEW. Who knows? But if history's any indication, Punk is a lightning rod for controversy. Never afraid to speak his mind. And what happens when him and Triple H butt heads creatively? What happens when Road Dogg, who's never been a fan of Punk, we heard that both Nick Khan and Triple H were not at Raw last week. Well, Punk was, and Punk's time was cut on Raw too, wasn't it? His promo. Who cut his time if Triple H and Nick Khan weren't there? Was it Road Dogg? Who runs Raw? Who runs the show in Triple H's absence? Is it Road Dogg? Is it William Regal? Who also we've heard speculation that Punk kind of butted heads with in AEW. I don't like you. You're a stooge for Triple H, right? That was the rumored thing. Who knows if that's true or not? It is the internet after all. This one has gone long, and I think we've covered all of our bases here. Other than, what happens if when things do go bad for Punk? Can he bite his tongue? Can he play ball? Can he be corporate? It's his last chance. If he doesn't, he's not going to get another one. I'll tell you that much. But that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. And awesome. Thank you guys if you stuck around and checked out all these clips. This one was a particular chore to kind of arrange, to edit, to get through, but it was fun and kind of worth it because everybody's talking about Punk, and it was worth it for that meme alone. And like I said, I'll probably chop it up, though. If you're still listening now, you've listened to them all, so it doesn't matter anyway. Peace, love, and pizza. I am your boy, Seth Grimes. My voice is starting to hurt after that one. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.